Some cars from the 1960s are so poorly engineered that mechanics today will flat out refuse to work on them. We're talking about vehicles with catastrophic rust issues, dangerous handling characteristics, and parts that simply don't exist anymore. These aren't just bad cars, they're automotive nightmares that combine engineering failures with maintenance costs that make no sense. Today, we're counting down 8 cars from the 60s that mechanics absolutely refuse to fix. Let's get started. Number 8. 1960 to 1967 Renault Dauphine. The Renault Dauphine arrived in America with an 845cc engine producing just 32 horsepower. Road and Track recorded a 0 to 60 time of 32 seconds, slower than most farm tractors. The car measured 155 inches long, weighed 1,400 pounds, and cost around $1,700 when new. While it sold over 2 million units in Europe, American drivers found it dangerously underpowered for highway use. The real problem was catastrophic rust. Poor quality steel meant these cars could rust through in just a few years. The lightweight construction felt fragile, and reliability was terrible, with constant carburetor icing and build quality issues. Mechanics refuse to touch them today because parts don't exist, structural rust compromises safety, and the engine isn't worth saving. Time magazine included it on their 50 worst cars of all time list. Number 7. 1963 to 1976 Hillman Imp. The Hillman Imp featured an innovative all-aluminum 875cc overhead cam engine producing 37 horsepower, independent suspension, and clever rear-engine layout. At 144 inches long and designed by future Formula One driver Mike Parks, it had genuine potential as an economy car. But it was rushed into production before development was complete. Water pumps failed, gearboxes broke, water leaked into the cabin, and the cooling system couldn't prevent overheating. The double-skin bodywork rusted everywhere, especially the front boot lid and door bottoms. Mechanics refuse Imps because aluminum engine parts are impossible to find, rust damage is structural, and only 440,000 were built over 13 years, far short of projections. The car killed the Roots Group. Number 6. 1962-1970 Triumph Spitfire MKI through i3. The Triumph Spitfire looked like the perfect British sports car for budget-conscious enthusiasts. With its beautiful bodywork designed by Giovanni Michelotti, compact dimensions of approximately 145 inches in length, and an affordable price point, it promised wind-in-your-hair driving without breaking the bank. The early Mark I through Mark III versions featured a 1,147cc inline-4 engine, producing between 63 and 75 horsepower depending on the model year. The car weighed around 1,570 pounds and offered genuine sports car handling with its independent rear suspension and rack and pinion steering. For young drivers in the 1960s, the Spitfire represented an accessible entry into the world of British roadsters. However, beneath that gorgeous exterior lurked problems that make modern mechanics cringe. The Spitfire's swing-axle rear suspension, similar to early Corvairs, could cause severe oversteer and unpredictable handling at the limit. The body-on-frame construction created numerous rust traps, and the steel bodywork corroded rapidly, particularly in the sills, floors, and around the rear suspension mounts where structural integrity is critical. Number 5. 1960-1961 Chrysler Valiant. Chrysler introduced the Valiant for 1960 as their entry into the compact car market, but this early model became notorious for quality control problems that frustrate mechanics to this day. The Valiant measured approximately 184 inches long with a 106.5-inch wheelbase and featured Chrysler's new 170 cubic inch slant 6 engine producing 101 horsepower. The car showcased Virgil Exner's dramatic forward-look styling, with pronounced fins, a sculpted body, and futuristic design elements that looked radical for a compact car. Chrysler positioned it as a sophisticated alternative to the Ford Falcon and Chevrolet Corvair with standard features that included an alternator instead of a generator and torsion bar front suspension. But the first 2 model years of the Valiant suffered from serious teething problems that give mechanics nightmares. The Slant 6 engine, while eventually becoming legendary for durability, had significant issues in its earliest implementation, including oil leaks, cooling system problems, and carburetor troubles. The push-button torque-flight automatic transmission, mounted on the dashboard, experienced electrical failures and shifting problems. Build quality was inconsistent, with panel gaps varying dramatically from car to car, interior trim pieces that rattled loose, and doors that didn't align properly. Number 4. 1965-1967 AMC Rambler Marlin. American Motors Corporation introduced the Rambler Marlin in 1965 as their attempt to compete with the Plymouth Barracuda and Ford Mustang in the personal luxury fastback market. The Marlin stretched 195 inches long with a 112-inch wheelbase and weighed approximately 3,618 pounds, significantly larger and heavier than its competitors. Engine options included a base 232 cubic inch inline-six producing 155 horsepower, a 287 cubic inch V8 with 198 horsepower, and top-tier 327 cubic inch V8 engines delivering up to 270 horsepower. The fastback roofline was intended to look sleek and modern, but AMC built it on the mid-sized Rambler Classic chassis, which was designed for family sedans, not sporty coupes. The result was a car so awkward and disproportionate that even AMC's own designer, Bob Nixon, later called it one of our worst production cars. The narrow trunk lid opening made loading cargo difficult, and the raised roofline over the rear seats, insisted upon by tall AMC president Roy Abernathy, ruined the fastback's proportions. Mechanics today avoid Marlins because parts are scarce, the unique body panels are impossible to replace, and the car's odd combination of components from different AMC platforms makes repairs complicated. The handling didn't match the sporty pretensions, and performance was mediocre despite adequate engine options. Number 3. 1964-1967 Vauxhall Victor FC. The Vauxhall Victor FC, marketed as the Victor 101 for its claimed 101 improvements over the previous model, promised to be a modern family car for the mid-1960s. This British sedan measured approximately 172 inches long with a 100-inch wheelbase and featured a 1.6-liter inline-4 producing 66 horsepower. The Victor FC introduced curved side window glass for greater internal width and incorporated innovative styling elements like side and indicator lamps mounted in the front bumper. At a retail price of £822, it was more expensive than the Austin Cambridge at £804 or the Ford Cortina at £761, positioning it as a premium choice in the family car segment. Instead, the Victor FC became infamous for one of the automotive industry's worst rust problems of the decade. Number 2. 1960 to 1963 Chevrolet Corvair. The Chevrolet Corvair was GM's ambitious attempt to create an American rear-engine economy car that could compete with the Volkswagen Beetle. The Corvair measured approximately 180 inches long with a 108-inch wheelbase and featured an air-cooled 140 cubic inch flat-six engine producing 80 horsepower in base form, with later versions expanding to 145 cubic inches and more power. The engineering was innovative for American cars, with independent suspension at all four corners, an aluminum air-cooled engine, and a low center of gravity. The styling was clean and modern, avoiding the fins and chrome excess, and it offered genuine versatility with sedan, coupe, convertible, and even van and pickup truck variants. But Chevrolet's cost-cutting decisions created serious problems that made the early Corvair dangerous and today make mechanics refuse to work on them. The first-generation Corvair from 1960 to 1963 featured a swing-axle rear suspension, which, combined with 60 to 63% of the car's weight over the rear wheels and lack of a front anti-roll bar, made the car prone to severe oversteer, where the rear end could tuck under and cause uncontrollable spins. The required tire pressures of 15 psi in front and 26 psi in the rear were foreign to American drivers, and most gas station attendants ignored these specifications, making handling problems worse. Number 1. 1961-1968 Amphicar. The Amphicar Model 770 combined a car and boat into one vehicle. Designed by Hans Trippel, it featured a 1,147cc Triumph Herald engine, producing 43 horsepower. At 157 inches long and 2,400 pounds, it was marketed as achieving 7 knots in water and 70 miles per hour on land, the fastest car on water and the fastest boat on the road. But it wasn't watertight. Flotation depended on the bilge pump keeping up with leakage. If it failed, the Amphicar would sink. Time magazine called it a vehicle that promised to revolutionize drowning. On land, narrow tires and 10-inch ground clearance made it top-heavy with terrible handling. 0 to 60 took over 21 seconds. After each water outing, owners greased 13 points, one requiring rear seat removal. Doors leaked, seals failed, rust was inevitable, and electrical systems failed from moisture. Mechanics refuse Amphicars because specialized parts don't exist, water damage creates safety concerns, liability is enormous, and the concept was fundamentally flawed. Only 3,878 were built, with fewer than 600 seaworthy today.